Donald Trump was humiliated at the New York Stock Exchange yesterday, where he rang the opening bell. All of the major indexes were down. The Dow was down 234, the S&P was down 32, and the Nasdaq was down 132. Also, Donald Trump's stock DJT, which is the stock symbol for Trump Media, which has lost hundreds of millions of dollars to date, that was also down yesterday as well when Donald Trump was ringing the bell. Now, this was a horrible look for Donald Trump. You know how important it was for him to have a good day on the stock market where he rang that opening bell. He also delivered very grim news, and he was there to try to deliver this kind of propaganda piece, but it went awful throughout the day. Donald Trump was asked by one of the business analyst propagandists, Jim Cramer, the following question. Jim Cramer asked Donald Trump, should working people buy more stock? It's like a softball question to Donald Trump. Donald Trump's response was, well, I don't want to get into a situation where they do and we have a dip or something, because that can always happen. So let me get this straight. Donald Trump went from campaigning and saying that he will make the stock market bigger and better than it ever is immediately to saying people should not invest in the stock market because he expects that there will be a dip. Now, this follows Donald Trump over the weekend doing that horrific interview on Meet the Press with Kristen Welker, where she asked him, economists of all stripes say that ultimately consumers pay the price of tariffs. Donald Trump says, I don't believe that. Kristen Welker said to Donald Trump, can you guarantee American families won't pay more? Donald Trump says, I can't guarantee everything or anything. This also follows Donald Trump saying in his Time magazine interview that he's not sure he can get any prices down. Trump says, it's hard to bring things down once they're up. You know, it's very hard. This is a disastrous day for Donald Trump on Wall Street. And just in general, as he's admitting that everything he said was an absolute lie. May I just read for you the full transcript of what Donald Trump said so you can just hear for yourself how idiotic it is? The question was, if the prices of groceries don't come down, will your presidency be a failure? Donald Trump says, I don't think so. Really? Because your entire campaign was based on that. But Trump goes, I don't think so. Look, they got them up. I'd like to bring them down. It's hard to bring things down once they're up. You know, it's very hard, but I think they will. I think that energy is going to bring them down. I think a better supply chain is going to bring them down. You know, the supply chain is still broken. It's broken. Pause there. Donald Trump was the one who broke the supply chain during Trump administration number one. You see it. You go out to the docks and you see all these containers. And I own property in California, in Palos Verdes. They're very nice. And I pass the docks, and I've been doing it for 20 years. I've never seen anything like it. You know, for 17 years, I saw containers. And, you know, they'd come off and they'd be taken away. Big areas, you know, in that area, you know, where they have the big ships coming in, the big port. And I'd see this for years as I was out there inspecting property and things, because they own a lot in California. What in the world is he talking about? I'll tell you what the Russian economy looks like and what their market looks like. Take a look at this. That kind of looks like what the DJT stock looked like before Donald Trump won the election. But could we just take a quick look at the differences in the stock market during Trump administration 1 and the President Biden administration? And I know President Biden would not brag and boast about the stock market. Perhaps he should have, to be honest. Perhaps President Biden should have put his name, as he suggested he probably should have, on the American Recovery Act checks that went out the way Donald Trump did. But President Biden was humble. He kept his head down. He didn't want to brag about the stock market because Biden realized that the stock market's not necessarily a metric for how working class people are doing. Although some people's 401ks, many people's 401ks are tied to the stock market. Their retirement's tied to the stock market in many ways. So I'm sure your 401k went up significantly under President Biden, unlike during the Trump administration. But there was, of course, a collective amnesia that took place while President Biden was in office, perpetuated by the media propaganda. But let me just show you this chart right here, just to be clear. And this is from a while ago. It's actually much higher than it is right now. The stock market, of course, passed 40,000 as well. So it's much higher. It's at 43,000 from when this chart was. This chart was when it was right around 40,000. But you can see the Biden stock market probably up about 55 to 60% higher than when Donald Trump was in office. So Donald Trump went from saying, oh, he's going to make the stock market great, threatening there's going to be depressions, to now Donald Trump is saying that people should not invest in the stock market because he thinks there's going to be a dip. Remember all of Donald Trump's posts in all caps? Stock market's crashing. I told you so. All caused by U.S. inept leadership. Then when he would brag when the stock market would go up, when he was not in office, this is the Trump stock market because my polls against Biden are so good. Well, if they're so good, why was it, Donald? Why was it that when you were at the stock market yesterday, the stock market did not go up? That's a pretty ominous sign. You were there. All your propagandists were there. Basically, your full cabinet was there. You were trying to rally it, but it didn't give a crap that you were there. It didn't care at all. Remember when Donald Trump said during the 2020 debate, if he's elected, pointing to Joe Biden, now President Biden, the stock market will crash? That didn't happen. But when Trump was in office, there were massive crashes, some of the worst days in stock market history over and over again. And President Biden swiftly defeated Donald Trump in terms of who had a better stock market. It was not even close. I want to read this for you, though, right here. This comes from our friends in Australia, the Saturday paper, John Hewson, America's Next Crisis. And here's what they talk about. Very, very sophisticated analysis right here. You ready? This is what Trump is jumping into. This is why Trump is saying that he thinks there's going to be a dip after Donald Trump was bragging about how he thought during the campaign that he was going to make everything great. Take a listen to this. This is what they write. The backdrop to all of this is a precarious situation in financial markets. The U.S. share market is seriously overvalued as suggested by two sources. The Wilshire 5000 Index, a weighted market capitalization of all American stocks actively traded in the U.S., is roughly 4 times higher than it was before the global financial crisis in 2008, which saw the largest share market correction since the 1929 Wall Street collapse. Then there's the so-called Buffett indicator, which measures total U.S. share market value against the size of the U.S. economy. As of the end of September, that was roughly $61 trillion to $30 trillion, meaning the share market was 208% of the national GDP. No wonder the markets have been somewhat erratic since Trump's re-election, which the uncertainty of his real policy agenda and his controversial proposed cabinet appointments. And no wonder billionaire investor Warren Buffett is holding more cash than at the time of the GFC. Perhaps the most significant initial concerns in financial markets relates to Donald Trump's commitment to undermine the independence of the Federal Reserve in its conduct of monetary policy. This has been compounded by the lack of any detail as to exactly what he has in mind, though he has denied any plans to remove Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, whom he appointed in 2018 and whose term runs to the end of May 2026. There has been much speculation as to whether he would try to replace Powell with one of his revengeful sycophant mates or subject the operation of the central bank to the White House regulation and review. It seems likely Trump will encourage the Fed to increase potential growth in the U.S. by easing monetary policy irrespective of the inflationary consequences. Following on from his constant hectoring of Powell during his previous presidency, Trump summarized his position on interest rate policy at a press conference in August 2024, saying, "I feel that the president should have at least a say in there. Yeah, I feel that strongly. I think that in my case, I made a lot of money. I was very successful. And I think I have a better instinct than in many cases, people that would be on the Federal Reserve or their chairman." It should be noted, Donald Trump's many companies went bankrupt over and over again. Well, this is an Australian newspaper, so they point it out, because they know how to do journalism. He has obviously forgotten his many failed businesses, among them Trump Airlines, Trump University, Trump Steaks, and his 6 corporate bankruptcy filings. Another concern in financial markets is the intensity of Trump's anti-China position, as reflected in his proposal to impose high tariffs on imports from China. He has exaggerated the so-called China threatened trade competition and made ludicrous commitments to reestablish the manufacturing base, especially cars, in the Rust Belt states of the U.S. The fact is that much of American manufacturing became globally uncompetitive due to cost, not only compared with China, but also against most other countries in Asia, Canada, and Mexico, which he also attacks. However, the extent to which Trump can hope to push China around may be limited. China holds what might be called the financial trump card. as the largest foreign holder of U.S. government debt, generally estimated at more than 40% of its outstanding treasuries, as well as a significant holder of American shares. This puts the Chinese in a very powerful position in that U.S. is reliant on them not only continuing to hold these securities, but also to keep buying more, especially given the prospect of more significant budget deficits and debt issuance under Trump. It's expected to be as high as $15 trillion under Donald Trump, but we expect it to be more than that at the MeidasTouch network. The fallout in financial markets could be very serious if the Chinese were to stage a buyer strike or even to sell its U.S. securities, with important consequences for the U.S. and probably global interest rates. However, there is something of a break on this course of action, as such activity would also reduce the value of China's holdings. There's more, but it's a great analysis right there. Compare this to the Biden-Harris administration economy right here. 12% GDP growth, 16 million jobs created, 1.6 million jobs created in construction and manufacturing, lowest average unemployment rate in 50 years. Incomes are up nearly $4,000 after adjusting for inflation. After adjusting for inflation, incomes are up $4,000. Even when you factor in inflation, up $4,000 on average. Lowered costs for families by thousands of dollars a year. A record $20 million new business application. Workers' filings for union representatives have doubled. $1 trillion in private sector manufacturing and clean energy investments announced. Pretty good stuff right there, as Donald Trump continues to go around saying that he won't guarantee Americans that they won't pay more. Trump goes, I can't guarantee anything. I can't guarantee I will control the prices. I can't guarantee I'll bring the prices down. In other words, Trump was completely lying about absolutely everything. I think Wall Street recognizes it. One other fact you go throughout history, the stock market has historically always done better under Democrats. Now, you would say, how is that possible? But people think that it does better under Republicans. Well, go back and look at your history. The only other president, I think, like in American history, who had a more robust stock market than President Biden was Bill Clinton during the internet boom, the initial internet boom. But President Biden's economy and stock market far better. By and large, Democrat stock markets perform much, much better than Republicans. Those are just facts. It's objective data. But, see for yourself. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 4 million subscribers. Thanks for watching.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.